Hello, and welcome to another short video about the OpenChat Bot Framework. In this video, I'm going to do a code walkthrough of a minimal example Canister bot written in Rust. So if you're... I've recorded this video immediately after the quick start video, and so I'm kind of in the same state at the beginning of this as I was at the end of that. OpenChat's installed. I've registered and installed the Llama bot, and I've built the Echo bot. So we're going to look at the Echo bot in a bit of detail today, do a code walkthrough, because it's kind of the simplest Canister bot example. And it's big. In fact, if you want to build a Canister bot in Rust, then this is a great place to start. Would be to copy and paste this project. So let's take a. I've got the OpenChat bots repo open in Visual Studio Code. We're going to be focusing on the RS folder, on the Rust folder, and just have a quick look at the contents of that. So we have a Canister folder. This is going to have the specific Canister SDK and some Canister examples. Likewise, the off-chain folder's got the off-chain SDK and some off-chain bot examples. We've got some scripts for quickly deploying example bots, and this is the base SDK shared by both the Canister and off-chain SDKs. This folder's RS folder is the Rust. Is the root of the Rust workspace. So we've got a Rust toolchain, so workspace, cargo toml, cargo lock file. It's also got a DFX JSON file with we've got three Canister bot examples, and they are kind of referenced in here. Some things to note: that this DFX version has got to be the same as the OpenChat DFX version. Basically, going to be running. I've got OpenChat running in Docker and DFX running in Docker, and this needs to be that needs to be the same version. And this this needs to be the same for both as well, to be running the same version of DFX. Right. The Echo bot is defining a candid file. Let's have a quick look at that. So go into Canister, Echo, candid. Now, bear in mind that normally you would expect to see update methods and query methods, working on Canister endpoints defined in here. Bear in mind that the way OpenChat bots work is that the OpenChat website calls them over HTTP rather than as Canister update calls, and that's because it can work the same for as far as the OpenChat website's concerned. It doesn't know whether a bot is a Canister bot or an off-chain bot. It behaves exactly the same way from that perspective. So all this, the only bit of information here really is the information about the init args, well, in this case, the init or upgrade args. And the only thing in this, the simplest, in fact, this is needed by all of the Canister bots. This is the minimal thing it'll need, is the OpenChat public key. Now, this is because in order to secure communication between the bot and OpenChat, when a user makes a command, or initiates a command from OpenChat, a bot command, it asks for a JWT from OpenChat containing the command information that's signed by OpenChat's private key, and then returned back to OpenChat. OpenChat website then calls into the bot with that JWT, and the bot then needs to with a public key verify that the JWT is genuine. And then also, this will also happen on the OpenChat side again to make sure it's the same and nobody's tampered with it. So, one second now. Let's have a quick look at the script to deploy the Echo bot. So this is very easy. You can, in one call with no arguments, it will just build and install an Echo bot canister. Now, if you're following along with the quick start video, then you notice in fact, you can see here, I already installed the Echo bot canister. Notice takes one argument, which can be either install, reinstall, or upgrade, and these correspond to the, DFX canister install modes. Now, the next part is it's basically, so the OpenChat website exposes the public key on this path here. And so this is just simply extracting the public key from the OpenChat website. So in order for these scripts to run, you basically have to have the OpenChat running locally. And here we're just going to build the arguments for the DFX install command. And then we've got all we need to call this deploy bot script, which is kind of used for all of the canister bots. So a quick look at that. So in the case of if the mode is install, then we need to create a canister. Otherwise we don't need to. And here we're just getting the canister ID, given the name of it. It's called Echo bot. That's the name we created it with. We're going to build the WASM and install it, and then output the sort of suggested name, principal, and endpoint of the bot, which we can then use for registering it in OpenChat. So let's just contrast this with, as I said, this is a super simple example, the Echo bot. Let's have a slightly more complicated example. In the reminder bot, we do something a little bit more sophisticated. If we look in the candid for the reminder bot, in this case, we've got, this isn't really super necessary, but we've split the init and upgrade args, and we've used a variant so that we can, I can either, in the case of init, we're saying you have to pass in a public key. In the case of the upgrade, we're saying it's optional. You generally wouldn't need to, unless for some reason the OpenChat public key is changed, which it only would have if locally. It wouldn't. If this is in production, that's never going to change. So if we have a look at the deployment script for the reminder bot, it's just a little bit more involved. In this case, if the mode is either install or reinstall, then get hold of the public key and build the init variant of the arguments. Otherwise, just build a simpler upgrade variant of the arguments. But then otherwise, it's just exactly the same as an Echo bot. Let's now look at the code for the Echo bot. So counter example is echo source. Now, the entry point is the lib file. And just for the sort of, you could split this up into smaller chunks, but I've just decided to put all of the sort of entry points into the canister in one place. So these are Rust canister sort of conventions and macros to sort of identify these endpoints. So So this is called whenever the canister, when the canister is initialized in the first place, or when it's basically when it's installed or reinstalled. So in this case, we're going to get the arguments, which is the public key. We're going to initialize our state, which we're going to come back to a bit later. Then in the upgrade, when the canister was upgraded, these two methods are involved, pre-upgrade and post-upgrade. Essentially, pre-upgrade is going to serialize the state into stable memory. Then Internet Computer will be in charge of upgrading the canister with the latest WASM, and then it'll call into the post-upgrade hook, which will deserialize the memory from deserialize the state from stable memory back onto the heap, effectively, and the canister's going to back up and running where it left off in terms of its state. And then we've got two more endpoints. These are the endpoints for handling HTTP queries and HTTP update calls, which kind of correspond to gets and posts somewhat. And there's a bit of subtlety there, but that's kind of hidden from the bot developer by this router component. Before we look into that, let's have a quick look at this. Well, let's have a quick look at this memory component. It's not really very interesting. Kind of this lib file kind of is very similar for all of the examples, and it's kind of boilerplate code. Likewise, this memory file is kind of boilerplate code. This is just assuming that you've got one, that you're not using stable memory in any sophisticated way. You're just using it to serialize and deserialize the heap memory during upgrade. And so it's just got one stable memory location for that purpose. And you could just copy that pattern. Or you can have more memory locations for different areas of stable memory for a more sophisticated bot. Now let's have a quick look at the state. So, in this Echo bot, it's pretty trivial. It's literally we're holding the OpenChat public key and nothing else. If we were just to look at a slightly sophisticated example, in the reminder bot, in this case, the state's got, it's always going to have the public key. In addition, it's got this API key registry, which I guess I might talk back in a different video, and it's got basically a registry of the reminders that this reminder bot holds. But back to the Echo bot, it's really simple. It's just got the public key. And then the rest of it's kind of boilerplate code again. You'll see that in all of the examples. So it's the state's being held as a singleton on the heap, and then we interact with it. Well, we'll come to that later with these methods, which take functions. We'll see how that works. Okay. Now, going back to the root, back to the lib file. This is how, as I said before, how the website, the OpenChat website, interacts with the bot by HTTP request, and in both cases, it's basically calling this handle method with either query set to true or false. So this is the query, this is the update version. Just need to tell the router that, and that's all you need to know, really. And then explain what this is doing. So it's defining this. It's defining the router. There's a singleton again. This doesn't need to be persisted because it's kind of stateless. You're just kind of a constant. You just set it up. Whenever the canister starts, it will start set up fresh. It's just available. And it's just adding a root. This is all bots need to support this execute. Well, if they have commands, bots don't have to have commands. They're pure integration bots. But in general, they've got commands, in which case they need to expose they need to handle this route here, execute command, and that's going to call into this commands execute handler, which we'll come to later. And this is basically saying that any other route, whatever else you do, it's going to return the definition of the bot. If we have a look at a slightly more sophisticated example, let's look at the reminder bot again and look at its router. Okay, not that not that complicated really. It's also, in addition, defining a metrics endpoint. What does the greet bot do? Okay, it's got a few more cases it's sort of supporting the greet bot. So it's got, this could be anything, but it's just handling some integrations. I've just called it this for no particular good reason. It's kind of where it pokes about a metrics endpoint, and we've got an endpoint for serving images and files. Back to the Echo bot. So let's have a quick look at the definition that's defined. So everything to do with the router is in the sort of router folder here. And this just implements it gives you a reference to bot definition, and it's just a description, the commands, and whether it's got autonomous config. In this case, it's just got a single command. It's not acting autonomously, this bot. So this is none. And the commands we're defining here, the command definitions we're defining here. Let's just have a quick look into this. Essentially, each command exposes its, let's back up a little bit. We have this command handler registry, another singleton, doesn't have any, it's just kind of a constant again. In this case, it's registering a single command, the echo command here. Again, let's look at a slightly more sophisticated example. Let's look at the reminder bot. In its command handler registry, it's registering 4 commands: remind recurring, remind at, list, delete, and it's got a handler for syncing the API key, an API key from OpenChat to bot. That enables the bot to act autonomously. Back to the Echo bot, simple. Only one command's registered. Now commands, I've got to implement a trait. In this case, it's just the command itself doesn't have any data associated with it. It's just implementing a command handler trait, and that's got to, let's have a quick look at that. You've got to define definition function. You've got to implement a definition function and an execute function. These are kind of default implementations, or concrete implementations rather. So let's just have a look at the Echo bot again. We've defined its definition. Well, this is just a pattern we've used in our example bots. We've defined the definition here, and then we hold it once. Again, it's a kind of singleton. We're holding it once so that we don't have to keep constructing it every single time this is called. But I mean, it's a pretty minimal saving. You could just return that directly within definition function. It made most odds. Let's have a quick look at the definition. So it's got a name, it's got an optional description, some placeholder text. This is what you would see. While you were waiting for a reply from the bot, you'd see any text here. Otherwise, you just hit ... It defines. Let's just skip params. We'll come back to that. Permissions. All it's going to do is send text messages. So that's the only permission it has. You don't need to be any particular. Anybody can call it, and we'll come back to this. It supports the so-called direct message scenario. And then it's defining one parameter, which is just a text parameter, a string parameter, with a message that this simple echo bot's going to echo back to you. It's just giving some range of verbs it'll take. It's going to use a multi-line input. There we go. And then we're going to look at the execution method, the execute method. So at this point, the SDK has kind of done a bit of work. We can have a quick go back and have a quick look while that's done. But from the point of view of the command handler, you get given a client, an OpenChat client, which you can use to call into OpenChat. And the SDK has already validated the arguments of the command correct. So you can just dip into the context of the client, pull out the command and its argument. As we can see, it's defined as being the message. It's got name message. So we're just going to get the argument with name message, which is just text. And we're literally going to send that text back to OpenChat. Here, we're using the client to send a message. This is actually, the send text message is actually a message, send message builder, which we can then use to, quick look, you can do with channel ID, with message ID. These are kind of more advanced cases you don't need to worry about. But now with block level markdown, whether it's a finalized method or unfinalized, you could, in this example, it's a finalized method, but you can send a sort of partial message, say you're calling off asynchronously, you don't have all the results yet, and then call it again with the same message ID and finalize it. Or you can do that multiple times and update the same message, multiple times. And then this is where actually executing it. Let's get back to EchoBot again. So in this case, we decided we want to display it with any block level markdown that was entered by the user. And then these are so essentially this is going to be executing this action. It's going to be sending this text message to OpenChat, and it's going to be returning immediately. So this is a synchronous call. It's kind of like a fire and forget. But it's going to return with a message to return back that you can use to return back to the OpenChat. So in this case, and this will mean it'll be fairly responsive. So we don't have to, you don't really want to wait here for the message from OpenChat as it kind of goes through the OpenChat Canister backend before returning to the bot. You might as well return a so-called unconfirmed message to the bot so it can show it straight away. And then, asynchronously OpenChat will then confirm that, send that. It'll be picked up by the OpenChat front end and the message should be confirmed. Another way you can act in, you can wait for these I'm getting lost in this system. We got some other examples where we do wait. Let's have a look in the greet example. In this case, we're calling into OpenChat. We're taking a message index as an argument into this function, to this message function, and it's going to look up. It's going to call into OpenChat to look up that message by its index. So in that case, we need to wait for the response. This is obviously the different method, the chat events method, and in this case, we're doing an execute async and awaiting it, rather than the EchoBot case, executing and returning message. Okay, so I guess let's have a look at it. See it in action. Now, if we follow what we've already installed it, so we've got these details here. Let me just copy that, go to the OpenChat. Oh, blinding me. Put that in dark mode. Better. Let's register the Echo bot. Explore. And endpoint. Call it what you want. We suggested a name, but I can use that. And it's got this one command, echo. Let's look for it. This is where, yeah, this is registered in the system. We can now install it in this direct chat. There we go. And we can either call this command conventionally, and this is really boring. It's just literally going to echo what I've typed. Or we can kind of we can do it in it because it's got this direct messages flag. If you remember, it's got this direct messages is true. This means it has to have a single, its first argument has, the first parameter has to be a string, which it is, and it can have no other arguments that aren't optional. In this case, it doesn't have any other arguments. That's fine. So it kind of fits the criteria. And that means in the case of direct chat, if you just type in whatever you like, that will be sent implicitly as an argument to that command, echo command. There we go. Now let's extend the Echo bot. And we're going to give it an equally interesting command, perhaps an even simpler command, ping. Let's copy and paste the echo command. Oops. And so we don't have a ping yet. So let's rename this. To ping. What to do? Well, rename it MS file. There we go. It's going to take no arguments this time. It's just going to return with poll whenever you type ping. So let's remove bullets of empty arguments, anti-parameters. This is going to be false this time. That's the definition. So it's not going to have any arguments, and we're just going to respond with poll to whatever, whenever this command is. Let's get back to the list of commands and register another one. Go. Let's just check bills. Yep. Now we're going to reinstall it. So let's use that let's use the same deploy script, but with the reinstall mode. Oh no, what am I talking about? I don't want to do that. I want to upgrade it, not reinstall it. Although, to be fair, it doesn't really have any state, so it doesn't matter. I'm just going to say no, because in general you want to grenade. Okay, we don't really need this. It's the same as before. So now, the bot's been updated, but OpenChat doesn't know about the new command yet. So we need to call update bot from OpenChat. So it's the Echo bot. I own a couple of bots on here in this local system. Echo bot. This hasn't changed, but this bot endpoint now exposes a ping command as well as the echo command. Let's update OpenChat. So yeah, now if I ping command, boom. Okay, well that is the extent of this little code walkthrough. I guess I'll do a longer code walkthrough for a more complicated example later. Thank you for listening, and you can build a cool bot. Goodbye.